Hello, this is Dale Matthews, and I'm no longer lost without the Bink because Mike Jones here on Inside News is making gorilla-type gestures toward me when the time comes.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. But you know what? There may be something in the preferences where you can get the little Bink back if you want it. We'll have to look into that.
I want my Binky back. I'm really disappointed in KJO. KJO purports to be a news station, well, at least one of the things that it does. The county commissioners recognize this show as absolutely nothing, but they're convinced that KJO runs a news operation. Now, this LPSC meeting, the Local Public Safety Coordinating Council, it was on the front page of the Courier. We've had it on our show like 3 days. It was on television, on the local TV station of Channel 5 over in Medford. It's been widely reported, but KJO absolutely refuses to tell you the story at all about what the three representatives told Commissioner Heck and the Local Public Safety Coordinating Council. It's not news.
Yeah. I don't really understand that, being that Carl Wilson was one of those legislators. That doesn't make any sense. I listen. It's clear from the passion with which he related that information that he is not playing both sides of the street on that. He was shooting straight from the hip. It's very, very clear. So why it's not on KJO, who knows why? Maybe they're just leaving the news up to whoever is, some flunky in the newsroom over there. I have no idea why. It is odd though.
It's not because they weren't there, because they usually do report on things that end up in the Courier and they kind of copy that. Well, it might be because there's no press release from the commissioners. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. Also, it may well be that they are trying to escape any possible confusion of bias on their part by reporting one way or another about that meeting of which their owner / CEO is a member. I don't know.
Yeah, they're trying to appear not to be biased. There's your answer. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this is an important day on this show. It's the end of 142 clips from the Friday candidates gathering forum that Mike Jones.
Okay.
This is the last one. This is, I think, the longest one at 15 minutes, and it's Lily Morgan. So we're going to let Lily have her complete say, and a couple questions from the audience, and then we'll talk about Keith Heck. Here's Lily Morgan.
I wasn't sure if I was going to make it after work tonight, so thank you for your patience. I do also want to thank you all for being here tonight. I am honored to be here and for the opportunity to serve Josephine County. This is my home. I was born here in Grants Pass. I was raised here. 6 generations of my family have lived in Oregon. We've gone through some tough times together, and as a community, we need to work together to provide a safe community where businesses thrive, where jobs are available, and where the local government works in coordination with the federal government regarding our natural resources. We have amazing people in Josephine County, and together we can make a difference. There are 3 areas that I think that we should focus on. The first, of course, is safety. We need to make our community safe, and that is going to be my #1 priority. Track record of respectful service to the public. Applying the golden rule every day is a step in restoring the public's respect for our Board of County Commissioners. I will work with my fellow commissioners, county staff, and members of our community to earn your trust. It won't happen overnight, but over the next 4 years working together, we can make a dramatic improvement in the performance integrity of our county government. The third aspect that we've heard tonight as well is our economy and creating jobs. I will work to bring new businesses and jobs to our county and to help those that are here retain their services and grow as they would like. Our county has enormous assets that we can build upon. We have natural resources of the Rogue River and the recreational opportunities around us. We have easy access to Interstate 5. We have attractions like the Oregon Caves and the coast nearby. We can and must leverage these assets to build a more diverse, vibrant, and sustainable economy. I will lead the county commissioners in promoting collaboration with the business community to identify and knock down unnecessary barriers faced by our local businesses. Some of the other priorities that I will help promote are being efficient. We have to work together with the other agencies. Right now, we see each of the cities and the counties and the school districts working independent of each other. And yet we have a 68% graduation rate with our kids. We have to find a solution. I learned that about 50% of our county voted for it and 50% voted against it. It's a divisive topic, but it is here to stay and it is legal. And we need to find ways to get the most out of the resources and grow the legal opportunities that are there while also maintaining the balance for the respect of the people that are not a part of that culture. We also have to be mindful that is age restricted. Alcohol, tobacco, those are age restricted items. And we have to be intentional to have prevention, education opportunities for our youth. The same goes with marijuana. It's age restricted and we need to protect our youth so they have a future and a hope for what they're going into.
Okay, it's time. Any questions for Lily? Okay. First come, first served.
Hi, Lily. Glad you could make it. On the issue of, I have a two-part question. On the issue of economic development, as a city councilor, you never supported the cannabis industry in Grants Pass because of smell and said it was federally illegal. You were absent on the vote for medical marijuana dispensaries. Your position your statements has deprived many patients of medical access. You've explained your change of mind. I'm wondering if that change of mind merely is because you're trying to court county voters. That's the first question. The second question is on the issue of property taxes. You as a city councilor and probation officer voted for every single city and county tax levy. True, you could change your mind. I'm going to ask you right out, will you as county, if you are our elected county commissioner, will you ever bring before the board or support any levy that somebody else brings before the board regarding tax levies? It's very important that candidates be consistent, and I'm just asking, will you support?
Those are the two questions.
That's my question.
Thank you very much.
We have a representative form of government right now where the city council was elected to represent the city residents. Overwhelmingly, what we found in the last few years is the city council or the city residents voted no on marijuana. And so when the issues of marijuana came up, we reached out to the community of Grants Pass and we asked, how do you Grants Pass citizens feel about marijuana? Overwhelmingly, they said, please keep it out of our town. And so as decisions were made for the city of Grants Pass, we have to make decisions that are representing those that live in our community. Now, whether the county voted that way or not is a different situation. I had been elected to represent the city, and that's my obligation with dispensary owners. I went out and spoke with legislators, and I spoke with citizens, and I heard it from both sides of the industry. And what I've heard is a lot of people don't want it in their backyard. They might want the revenue from it, but they don't all want it in their backyard. So we have to find a way to have our citizens who 50% feel on both sides of it, we have to find a way to protect and respect both sides of that issue.
Okay. Sandy Kessler now.
Lily, at the local Public Safety Coordinating Council on Wednesday, you were a board member along with Wally Hicks, Keith Hack, Dave.
Correction, I am not a board member. I'm not a voting member. I was asked to sit there to represent community corrections, but I'm not a voting or board member.
Okay. Thank you for that correction. But when this board voted unanimously to go forward with implementing this governor's takeover, we asked if at the very end, that they did it without any public input at all. At the very end, when we asked if the public could be allowed to speak, not one single person on that board or invited there would give the public the opportunity to speak and voice their opinions on this. In my opinion, this is not a very, I don't know what you said, Christian or open manner for making decision that is so serious to the county and the citizens of Josephine County. So why didn't you say something and allow the people to speak?
I was invited to be there the same as anybody else. I was not a voting member. I had no say. And those that had been there the whole time said that traditionally, in the entire history of that board since 1996, when it was established, 97, they have never allowed public comment.
It was up to the chair, and you could have advocated for us.
It wasn't my position to do so. And the sheriff could probably back me up on that as someone who's not a board member.
Okay,
So-
one more and we're wrapping it up.
Hi. My question for you.
Vivian's still in line, by the way.
I'm sorry, Vivian. Okay, we'll let Vivian ask a
Thank
question.
you.
My question for you, being is that we've heard throughout the state of Oregon and other states that there's been a question about honesty with politicians and people that run heads of organizations or nonprofits like here in Josephine County. When they come up and say, if it doesn't come out of my mouth, it's Bravo Sierra, if you know what that means. My question is, when I've seen them come up on video or other people, politicians come up and say, if it doesn't come out of my mouth, it's not true. What is your concern as a county commissioner, if you become county commissioner, that the veterans and the homeless in this county are hearing that there's a lot of lip speak going on, and that can you as a county commissioner assure that at least one member on your the county commissioners, the three of you, will make sure they really keep toe to the metal as far as making sure the veterans and the homeless veterans are taken care of in Josephine County?
I have great admiration for those who have served, and I have come across many veterans that have ended up in the criminal justice system because there's been no help for them. And due to the PTSD or other illnesses that have maybe come out of their time of service, they have been caught up in my office. And so I've worked closely with the Veterans Administration in White City and in Roseburg and trying to get services for folks. I am on the Sobering Center board, and we're due to open that soon to try to reprieve some of the costs of housing people in the jail and at the hospital. Recently, I have joined Rika Brown in trying to come up with ideas for a rest well center. And I can tell you this, whether you agree with everything about Rika or not, she's somebody who puts her walk to what she talks. And when it comes to the homeless, there are many that are still on the streets that do not want to go to the mission for various reasons, whether they don't want to stop smoking or they don't want to abide by the faith principles that are taught there. There are others that choose to stay on the streets. And as you heard not too many months ago, we've had people die because of the weather. So just 2 weeks ago, I gave a young man a ride to the warming center that Edgewater Church hosts. And he was telling me on the way, the police told him there's no right to rest in Josephine County. You do not have a right to stop and bandage your wound or to sit and rest. And they have that in other parts of the state. They have that in other parts of the city. I know that someday I'm going to stand before my maker and have to atone for what I did for the least of these. And for me, the homeless and those that are in need are the least of these. And so I think that is our obligation to treat them with respect as well and find a way to meet the needs of everybody that's residing in our county.
Okay, Vivian?
That's most honorable, Lily. My question to you is, were you aware that on the coming week, there is on the agenda for the County Board of Commissioners, the discussion of hiring an economic development officer? And how do you feel about that? And there was mention of someone in the audience that I think probably knows about this, sharing it between the county and the city, which is a disaster waiting to happen, if you ask me. And it's somewhat like So Ready, who works for Jackson County and gets people for there, but nobody for here. My question to you is, how do you feel about the economic development officer? And A, and B, is there anybody, or would you, support having somebody with their finger on the pulse of the budget of Josephine County? If it's not in the budget, it doesn't get spent. And that's the big problem we run up against here is, they just spend the money. And then they figure out, it wasn't in the budget. Oh, well, big surprise. And it's supposed to be signed off ahead of time. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't.
I'll try to take those one at a time. You might have to remind me if I forget. I'll start with the budget one. My department is a department that was given money through the Justice Reinvestment Act, 1.2 million over a biennium, and it came after the budget was approved. And that's money that was in turn divvied up to other agencies in the community. It paid for 10 jail beds, it paid for transitional housing, it paid for victims advocates, it paid for a district attorney's position, and it helped with transition, one was transition housing, the other was transition services. And so I think that there's circumstances when money comes in after the budget that you have to deal with that. And I think the right way to deal with it is what the charter says, and that's a supplemental budget hearing where it's addressed and the budget is amended, and then it has a time for public comment, and it can move forward through the proper channels that already exist. As far as economic development, I think we absolutely need an advocate that is out there, as others have said before me tonight, that brings people into Josephine County and says this is a place that you want to live. We have the beauty like no other. We have the tax rate like no other. And we have people willing to work, and we have high school kids who want to have jobs. So having somebody who advocates for our community is a good thing. What I am aware of is why the city and county ended up in partnership the way they did. And that's because when the issue came up before the county commissioners, they said we have no funds. And so we will help with providing office space and this and that, and you guys pay for the position because we don't want to pay for a salary. And so the city and the county ended up trying to work in partnership, and there's currently, they have paid together for an economic development plan to come up with a strategy for how do we best meet the needs of our community. One thing that is certain is the economy of the city and the county, and the city of Cave Junction and the county are intertwined. People come in and out of all of these places together. I mean, city of Grants Pass residents is what, 35,000? But in the daytime swells to 55,000 from all the people from the county coming into work. So if there's jobs that come into the city, that means there's jobs for people in the county to get. Same as if there's jobs out here that are created, there's, you know, more opportunity to be spent at all the businesses in the community. We want the entire area to be doing well. For instance, there was one building in Grants Pass, First Community Credit Union. They invested $6.5 million to restore that building on Harbeck, and they created 20 new jobs. $6.5 million increased assessed value of that building. Well, since every building and business and home in Grants Pass, Cave Junction, Williams, Murphy, everywhere in Josephine County pays a Josephine County tax, that city business increased their value, meant the county got more taxes. So you see how they're connected. It benefits all of us if the economy is improving. I do not believe, as has been said before, that having one work for two, you can't have two masters. It's kind of like you're going to be torn. You're going to be your loyalty here, your loyalty there. I'm not for having that divided.
Okay, thank you very much, Lily Morgan. No more time for any more questions.
This meeting, we started playing them back the day after Mike ran that forum. That was exactly 2 weeks ago when we started playing back. So 14 of them have played. And by now, what she just said, not commenting on what she said, she was just talking about the supplemental budget hearings. They have to let you speak at a hearing. That will take place on Wednesday.
Yeah, they're coming up here.
Auditorium. Right.
Right. Now, I do want to say one thing about that. There was, in that last piece, there was a couple little digital anomalies. And those were due to the stream breaking up towards the end. All in all, considering the length of time that we were streaming there, I'm very, very pleased with how that came out. You know, I would have liked to have had someone monitoring each camera, and then there was a little bit of a short thing with the mic in the audience that kept buzzing when everybody touched it. But other than that, I'm very, very pleased with how that turned out. Now, I do have a solid recording of all of that, so it's not like there isn't a copy. So if any of these candidates are requesting piece of that, we do have that video. So
Well, also everybody, it was universal that everybody praised Mike for running it the way that he did. I should also let you know, this is inside baseball here, but Windows 10, which is the only way that we can run this, Windows 10 has some kind of problem with device drivers. Now, some of you are going to go, I don't know what that means. Okay. Others will say, oh, yeah, it sure does. And 3 times during that playback, the device driver shut down and started back up again.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I was having problems with that before, and I dumped everything and I reloaded the operating system onto this particular computer has an onboard SSD, which is a solid state hard drive. And I loaded the operating system onto that and a number of programs that I wanted to perform quite well, because it's a instant access memory as opposed to a hard drive that has to go seek the information, get it, and bring it back. And I haven't had one of those issues since doing that. And so that was a good idea. I don't know how to deal with it outside of that. We'll keep looking at that, and hopefully we'll find a solution. There's a lot of people that are having that display driver crashing issue.
Onboard SSD thing sounds like Battleship Bismarck or some reference to German Navy, but whatever.
Yeah,
okay.
Right.
So we're going to now jump over to KMED, where Keith Heck had an opportunity to, this is first and probably his last time on KMED. And he's not a happy guy when it comes to people asking him questions, even though he's supposedly a public servant. Let's find out what it is that Keith Heck had to say. I've rolled it back to, because we played part 1 for you already. I've rolled it back to where Keith Heck is saying that the fairgrounds doesn't get any general funds from the county. Now, we know that that's incorrect. So I thought I'd give him a chance to say it again, and maybe he'll change his mind and say it differently on this time.
Well, and and we did on a show here a few weeks back, we were talking about, I think it was Title III money. And apparently they're using Title III money to use, was it prisoners as labor or something like that?
Oh, yes, that's a good story. Go, Mike.
And then they're sharing that free labor with divisions of the county, one of which being the
fairgrounds.
And the fairgrounds. And so they're getting the benefit of that too. So they're not exactly 100% self-sufficient.
No, and Simon Hare said, it's hard to believe that they say these kinds of things, and I'm sitting right there. You're sitting right next to me. We're going to look at it together. And Simon Hare says, if they don't have that free labor, why, they'll just go, there won't be any fairgrounds anymore.
Yeah.
And I leaned forward and I looked at him like, oh, really?
What were they doing before they had free prisoner labor? I mean, I just, how long could that program have been going on? And no, that's just really bizarre. Listen, there isn't any reason why the fairgrounds couldn't be self-sufficient. If you had appropriate management in there, you would have things going on there all the time that should. I mean, part of the problem is that economically we have issues, because I have an empty unit at my building, and it's medical office space, and it's hard to fill that kind of stuff. Outside of a decent economy, and then of course on top of that, with our commissioners running down the place like it's the Wild West, and you're likely to get shot just driving through the place. That adds to the complication there of getting business off the ground. But if they would stop doing that, and we would somehow foster a good economy, and we got a couple of breaks with the federal government, there's no reason why that fairgrounds couldn't be hopping all the time.
Well, Anyway, we're going to let Keith explain to you how the fairgrounds doesn't get help from the county government. What's the matter with you guys?
Really?
Yeah, that's the reality of it. I mean, we can't overlook the fact that many of the parks, the fairgrounds, those issues don't take any money out of the general fund.
Mm-hmm.
They are self-supporting programs. Planning is not a total suck out of the general fund. If they didn't have general fund money, it would be very hard pressed. But there is no wonderful secret pot of large cash laying around anywhere. That just is not there. Josephine County, I think, has done a great job of becoming financially independent, but we don't have a bunch of these different programs.
Okay. Doing it again. When the budget hearings happened, depending on who you talked to, who was there, it was either $8 million in the road fund or 6. Let's suppose it was 6. Okay. Then several months later, it was 4. Now, okay, follow the money, Dale and Mike. What happened to $2 million? Okay. Now they're saying it's $2 million. Okay, follow the money, Dale and Mike. What happened to an additional $2 million? Where are those? We're not talking about $1.95 here. Where did all those millions of dollars go? And Keith is saying, well, it's not like we have money, to set aside. Where did the millions of dollars go? That's a substantial number.
It's a good question. And I think part of it is that last year during the budget hearings and afterwards, when there was this money that fell out of heaven, it was very, very difficult to get these people to tell us exactly how much was in that fund. I mean, the numbers varied from 10 million to 500,000 or whatever. I mean, it was all over the map. They wouldn't lock it down to something. And maybe the reason why they don't lock it down to something is because they're siphoning money out of that fund. Who knows?
Well,
I mean, we have to speculate because they would.
Right. It's got to go somewhere. And the first thing that 2 fiscal conservatives are going to do is if we can get 2 of them and not 1.5, is they're going to come in and they're going to put a couple of citizens, and including themselves, in the finance department and say, okay, open your books. Open the books. Yes, open the books. Well, those documents have been inextricably, they've been shredded. Or whatever. I don't know what they're going to say, but I want to know, first question, where did those millions and millions and millions of dollars go that we wanted to be available to the sheriff's department? Oh, no, that's possible. Impossible. We sure need that 6 million, that 4 million, that 2 million. What happened to those millions?
Yeah, it'd be just a debit credit accounting of what's going on there. Yeah, it's not too much to ask.
This is going to end up, prediction from me, this can end up being a big scandal. And these guys will be lucky if they get away with all of this, with nobody coming after them. Oh, well, that's the long, dark past, and since it's the past, it's just hearsay or whatever it is Cheryl Walker's going to say. Remember that? No, we don't need to follow up on anything. Yeah, I want to know where the loans went. Were they ever repaid? Did they make a special deal like they just did with Cameron Camp? Apparently, because they closed and locked the door when they were doing their special little negotiation with a quorum in the room, probably. Well, that's why we don't answer your questions, Mr. Matthews. That's why we don't consider you to be any kind of media, Mr. Matthews. We're going to find
it seems like, and they economic development has been a pretty controversial topic.
Yeah, buddy.
I mean, they haven't really been able to do any of this stuff without, coming off looking like idiots.
Yeah. Well, okay, so here's a little bit of hyperbole. I'm telling you it's hyperbole ahead of time. Violating the open public meeting laws in Oregon is a misdemeanor. Okay, it's just a misdemeanor. We know they have. This is the reason why they said we want you not to start taping until we tell you can start taping, and we want you to stop as soon as we tell you to stop. Well, because we were catching them on tape violating the law. No wonder they said that. But I kept taping, and I never gave in on that. Okay, so that's a misdemeanor. A misdemeanor in Oregon is a crime. It's called a crime. It is a crime. Now, when you've got people that are getting together in a group to commit a crime, including Wally Hicks, one of the definitions of that is a garden party, I suppose. Another definition of that is it's a criminal conspiracy. It is a group of people that are getting together following Keith Heck's motto, which is, I know we're breaking the law and I don't care. It is a criminal conspiracy in the state of Oregon. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's 10 other things. Okay. What is it? Why, it's nothing. I'm telling you, what's going to happen is when we start looking into the money, when we finally get access to that money to find out what happened, we're going to find stuff that's going to curl your hair. And it's going to turn Mike's hair shocking white.
Oh, it's already most of the way there. Can't we find something that like shocks it back to the auburn that it used to be? Believe it or not, I used to be like a redhead when I was growing up.
Wow.
If you can
You
imagine.
were a redheaded child. Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Now, here
But not
is
a stepchild.
no, okay. Here is Keith Heck on KMED. Take it away, Keith. Tell us more of your stories.
If some of these programs can produce a fairground, if it cannot produce enough money to function themselves, they're out of business. So that's the reality of things. There is no large answer, easy answer, and that's probably one of the more frustrating things when you have these so-called well-meaning people that keep harping on these things. I mean, let's get federal out of our forest. Let's be able to cut our forest. Well, who would not agree with that? I mean, I've been a member of different groups for 4 years that want to see that take place. It hasn't taken place. And even if it was starting to move to take place, it would still be years before we'd ever receive a penny. We moved to town in 1996.
Well, get on it then.
The mills functioning in Josephine County in 1996. Today, we have one that is still functioning in anticipation of shutting down.
Yeah, and even that
because the commissioners won't get on it.
Because the commissioners are not getting on it. That's right.
Yeah.
We said recently on the show, no, wait a minute. How many letters, as an elected official, you are paid, Keith Heck, how many letters have you sent to the various heads of these groups in Washington, D.C., the Senate and the House groups and et cetera, BLM? How many letters have you sent them as a county commissioner? We're paying you. What are you doing? Yeah. I'm sending letters. I'm not even a commissioner.
Yeah, it's that's a good question, and I think all of these guys really should be answering that question, and I mean, if it's going to take 10 years, well, you better get started. What is your excuse? Oh, well, you can't get started because it would take 10 years. Wow. I'm glad that they weren't thinking like that back in the 60s when they said, let's get to the moon by the end of the decade. Right. I mean, we never would have got there. We'd still be talking about how, someday, we could go to the moon, but it would probably take 10 years to make it happen. So let's not start. It's just silly.
He said, we will go to the moon and do the other thing. What the heck was the other thing? Not because it is easy, but because it is hard. What was the other thing?
I can't remember the other thing. I can't remember the other thing. I just have to make note. When you're listening to Keith Heck, he's breaking up because the phone line he's on is just god awful.
No, that's not our fault.
Yeah, it's really, really bad. And you'll notice that during this recording, it's only Keith Heck. Bill Myers coming in loud and clear.
That's correct. Here we go.
Yep.
So at 58 cents per thousand, is it your opinion that Josephine County property owners are under tax? Because when you look at $2.01 here in Jackson County.
Well, I think there's nobody that would say that we are flush with tax funds. Like I said, when you come up with $4 million to run a county, that's pretty slim. Now, however people want to try to phrase that, look at that, okay. I mean, we have to live within our budget. We cannot go like the federals. We can't do that. We have to live within our budget. And I'm not really sure that everybody understands what that means in 17-18 fiscal year.
Mm-hmm. Josephine County Commissioner Keith Heck is on the program right now. Have you take your calls at 770-5633 if you have a question for him, too. So you had talked about how economic development, of course, is not going as well, and you think that a lot of the problems with economic development in Josephine County are due to law enforcement. Now, I remember...
No, I never said that.
No?
I said certainly not having a sound, adequate law enforcement system does not promote people to look at investing monies in Josephine County. But I can't tell you that we've lost 65% of the people and whatever. I know there's been several larger businesses that have thought about coming here that have simply walked away and went down to Jackson County.
Yeah, they take a look at the lay of the land. Nat, don't want to go into the wildlands of Josephine County, let's say, right?
We're a beautiful location. Geographically, it looks beautiful, but you have to have a sense of security, and that's what we're struggling with.
Okay, so given that is the case, and we do have a clear and present danger there, and I'll concede your point there. I think there's an issue. I haven't noticed driving through it on the way to the coast, but I'm not there at nighttime, right? That's where we started, where the pedal meets the metal, as it were. So how about this then? What about taking economic development money, grant money, which comes in right now through lottery and various other sources?
Here it comes.
And applying that to law enforcement right now, given that you yourself had said that there is pretty clear that there are businesses that will not relocate to Josephine County due to an unsteady law enforcement. Because if you can come up with economic grant money for a boat ramp and say it's going to create jobs, couldn't you also then make the case on grants that that law enforcement would help the economic climate of Josephine County?
Sure, but sometimes there are strictures that the grantors make on you that you cannot spend the money on that. There are restrictions on how that money can be used sometimes. Mm-hmm. They're itemized situations. The boat ramp situation you mentioned, that was applied for by the city of Cave Junction, for a group that is in the city of Cave Junction, and that was an independent grant that was given for that particular purpose. You could not use that money for a sheriff's department.
So does this also apply?
That is not the example. I don't know why he let him get away with that. They have spent economic development money on a boat ramp. They spent economic development money on a children's library, because it's going to be an economic development, Mike. They spent economic development money on just giving the money away to 4 different departments in the courthouse.
Yeah.
Saying, well, that's economic development. No, that's just giving them money to help them run their department and buy more paper and toner. That's not economic development. So we kind of slide on that a little.
And listen, okay, so even if you wanted to get really creative about it, you could take that money, supplement these other departments, and then just short their budget back to the general fund, and then take that money out of the general fund and give it to the sheriff. There are ways that this could be done. It's just there's no will to do this for obvious reasons that I'm sick of talking about.
Well, would you stop talking about it, please? Because
we're being manipulated.
Yes.
Emotionally manipulated, and so this is why we're here.
We're going to put an end to that if we're lucky. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
To the lottery grant funding, which comes from the state of Oregon.
Well, to a certain degree, it does in general, but there are some specific funds. I think I'm fishing now at 6:30 in the morning.
I understand.
I think there's about $47,000 that we could take and put over to the sheriff's department out of those lottery funds that come to us that we would have the
80,000 at least.
But $40,000 is half of an officer.
Well, half of an officer is better than none.
Oh, well, sure. Well, sure it is. I'm not saying that, but everybody will drive them on bikes because bikes are better than cars. That's not an answer.
Yeah, no. I get that. That's not the answer. So you have an area. So it's sort of a negative feedback loop that you're facing right now in Josephine County. There seems to be an impression that
that sounds good.
I get an impression that the voters don't trust the county government. Am I right or wrong about that impression, given the fact that they're not willing to tax themselves more to pay for law enforcement? Where am I wrong on this one, Commissioner Heck?
Well, I'm not sure if you're wrong or right. It's just I've not seen an objective poll that says they don't trust you. When you lose something 53-47, that is not a resounding defeat. I mean,
oh, really? Well, what happens when you lose something 80-20?
Yeah, right, exactly.
So
that's pretty resounding.
He's not getting any feedback at all, Mike, really, when you think about it.
I've been through a resounding defeat my first couple of months in office, and I swore I'm not going to do that one again. But yeah, I mean, the first vote that was lost, I think, was 51-49. That's not a resounding defeat. That's a defeat, certainly. But to say that I gave up trying to pass ordinances for tax and
we
tax
didn't.
increases. I'm sorry, I'm done with that. I'm not going to do that anymore. But that does not mean that there still cannot be efforts to investigate and to look at it. But in certain climate of here, if you ever even ask a question about something, then you are automatically categorized as some enemy or whatever. And that's
No. It's not simply asking the question. It is ordering county staff to spend taxpayer money to grab up information that then Keith Heck turned over to SOS or Cuffs so that they could be the ones, this citizen-driven initiative, to bring it forward.
Right. And just to be clear about that, if anyone else came in to ask for that information, you would be paying through the nose for it. They wouldn't put their people on it and hand that information to you without you giving them thousands of dollars, probably. And yet they'll give that that work and that information to Cuffs or SOS because they agree with what they're doing. They're just a surrogate for the board because the board really wants to do it. They just don't want to have their name on it. That's all.
One of the reasons we do commentary during these things is that because you can listen to this on your own if you want to go to KMED and call them up and listen to this without any commentary. One of the reasons we do this is because when Cheryl Walker or when Keith Heck or Simon Hare, when they say something, it starts sounding like, well, when you put them back to back to back, yeah, that sounds like it might be about right. But if you know a little bit more about the history behind it, you can say, now, wait a minute. How does that fit in with the idea that you're already doing that? Or when we recorded it and played it back, boy, he hated that. Well, I would never do that. Okay, I'm willing to give it a good old college try. Now, wait a minute. That doesn't match with what he's just now saying. Like at the top of this segment, it doesn't match because it's not true. And it sounds good, maybe.
Wow.
That's part of the negative, and it restricts opportunity to look at things.
What do you believe then is the way to Josephine County prosperity? And what could you, as a commissioner, if you are returned to office, what could you do to make that happen? What do you believe is actually within the realm of the possible?
This ought to be good.
Well, I mean, there's little tinkerings you can do. I mean, it's like the planning issues. The planning department there's a lot of unrest about some of the planning laws or planning rules that restrict builders to build and to develop and those kinds of things. Those are always should be looked at and re-looked at. And we should never be afraid to investigate some of those things.
Afraid.
The bottom line is we need to have money to function as a county. And there is no money to function as a county in another year and a half. But the county will continue. I mean,
now, there is no money for the county to function in another year and a half. There is no money.
Yeah, that's the myth that they're pushing here. And of course, even in today's Courier, there was an article about COSAR, which we reported about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, about their push to reestablish SRS funds. And, there is stuff in the pipeline. I think it would be politically pretty dangerous for the representatives in this area to just walk away and not be giving something, because we're in a unique situation where a very little bit of the land in the county is taxable at any kind of decent rate, and
Right.
And so it makes it very, very difficult, under any other conditions other than using the natural resources here to come up with the money to pay for county services. So that's a real tricky thing for them to completely walk away. I know they want to do it. I know that they would just love, because listen, it's like our commissioners wanting the ISF money. They don't want to have to give money to that little county there anymore so that they can squirrel it off and use it for some other pet project. Of course they want to do that, but there's a political price to be paid, I think, for that. And maybe if more squeaky wheels, like Dale has been writing letters, if more squeaky wheels are writing letters, then they'll reconsider, the stupid maneuver of cutting us off entirely. And again, it's stated in that article, near the end of the article, Greg Walden says that, he would much rather not have the SRS and have some sort of reestablishment of, timber revenue sharing reestablished again. And I agree with that, but okay, that's not happening right now. So we have to take whatever they're going to give us until that does happen. And listen, I think that, when it comes time to hitting them up for the, the shared revenues from timber, that we should be saying, well, listen, you kind of owe us for all these empty years here when you weren't paying us for timber.
That's right.
You're going to have to come up with some sort of a rationale legitimately why you weren't doing that. I know you have all kinds of good sounding reasons, but we have a contract that's law. It's the ONC Act, which is, it's kind of
It's
a big
contract.
Deal. Yeah.
Okay, so there's this relationship between the two things. Let's say, and I think this is smart too. What we all think it's smart, don't we? That what we'd prefer to do is not get necessarily like a quarter of the country SRS payments. We'd rather control the land ourselves. Well, yes. Okay, but there's going to be this gap. And the gap may be this big. And again, it may be this big. What bridges that gap? Because you don't turn this off and say, okay, we don't have a plan. That's what they're talking about with the governor. There's no plan what to do afterwards. So there's going to be this gap. What fills the gap? You know what fills the gap. A levy, a never-ending levy.
Yes.
You already said you don't want.
Or even worse, a taxing district of sorts,
Or as the guy said in the letter to the editor today, why, I think it would be a wonderful idea to have the state, I'm going to paraphrase, we'll read it to you exactly tomorrow, to have the state force on us the $2 bill, the $2 forced tax levy. Because, when you think about it, the people of Josephine County, what do they think they're getting away with? Why, they have the lowest tax rate in the state. That's one of the reasons why people want to come here. And if you stop having politicians saying, oh, but it's a chaos situation, there's blood in the streets, you got to carry an AK-47. Darren Fowler, why are you telling people that? Cheryl says the reason people aren't moving here is because of this show. Oh, that's not the reason why. It's because you guys can't shut up with the doom and gloom statements where everything's going to hell, and we're looking around and we're going, well,
the stats don't show it, so it's their perception.
Their need for money is showing it. So
the businesses of the county will be conducted. We will have a sheriff. We will have a jail. How many cells going to be in the jail? I don't know. Maybe 2, maybe 3. But we will have a sheriff. We will have a jail. These programs are not going to fold up. The county's not going to fold up. But it's just what kind of environment do we as citizens of Josephine County want to live in?
One without lying politicians.
Do you believe that it's wise to go more into that direction of the fiscal emergency and get matching funds from the state in order to pad the budget or at least fill some of the holes temporarily? What are your thoughts on that? There's been a lot of news about that recently.
Well, a lot of the news is just ironic. I keep reading the news and figure out what they're saying that I'm saying, what I've done. I mean, the commissioners have had discussions on that. I mean, we have a meeting tomorrow with this local public safety group, LIPSEC, and they are proceeding through this. I might say plotting through, but they're proceeding through this to ask good questions to find out, are these things possible? And tomorrow we've got a meeting, and it's going to have some of our legislators there. And because that law that allows that to be exercised, the governor will poll and talk with the local legislators to see whether they are supporting of this thing. And if they're not supporting of it, then, okay, let's go fish in another pond someplace, because that thing is pretty well dead. So they're going to find out tomorrow, is there any willingness on the part of our legislators to promote this thing? But there's not been any decision made on that to go there or not to go there.
What is your opinion about going there, though? What are your thoughts as a sitting county commissioner?
My thoughts are, as I alluded earlier, I resent the idea of thinking that I am utterly dependent upon somebody other than myself to make my own way and extrapolate that out to a county. Are there things the federal government needs to do? Sure, because they have a lot of business. They need to pay for it here in the county. The state, same thing. Citizens here, the same thing. We need to pay for what we use and what we are going to benefit from. I do not like the idea of me saying, you know what, state, I want you to bail me out here because we're in a tight row. I just don't like that. It just bugs me. I mean, I'm not somebody who enjoys being bailed out by somebody else. I mean, I have to pay some of the consequences sometimes, but that's my responsibility to do, and I think that's our responsibility to county.
I think one of the challenges you deal with in Josephine County, too, is that through environmental policy, and this is where we have the intersection of state, gangrene, federal government, and so much more, that there is, in effect, a forced and slow starve out. And then as people are being starved out, they're then being told, well, you need just to tax yourselves more. And I think this is where you see that negative feedback loop. How do you get tax up like that? Absolutely. And that's the difficulty, because I don't think there's anybody who wants to say, I want to live in a parking lot. That's my home. I love it. But yet on the other hand, I want to be able to build something on that parking lot. And then you have all these different restrictions that come into play. And we're getting to the point now, my personal opinion, we're getting to the point now where we're moving towards a time when we're not going to talk, we're not going to dialogue, we're just going to react. And that is going to be a bleak time. Yeah, and that could be a pretty dangerous time indeed. Josephine County Commissioner Keith Heck. And John, you have some property in Josephine County, and you have a question here for Commissioner Heck. Go right ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Yes, I do. I own multiple properties in Josephine County. I live in Jackson County, which means I don't have a vote anymore, although I do have to pay the property taxes on those properties.
Sure.
I used to live in Josephine County many, many years ago.
Yeah. I only got about a minute and a half, so if you could just get your question, that'd be great.
Well, you hit it right, Bill. Basically, people don't trust our commissioners over many, many years. So saying, we're marching towards something in 2017, they've been trying to pull this increase for many, many years. So there's a public mistrust. And I think if the commissioners can be honest with the people and be more transparent and not find money at the last minute, I think we'll have a better dialogue. Commissioner, you wanted to respond to John before we take off? I don't know how I could ever promote anything because you don't trust me. So anything that I would promote would be a crock anyway. So, I mean, it's a dead-end street. Death spiral.
All right. Where can people go find out more about what you're all about here, Commissioner Heck, if they've had some questions and maybe would even just like to get in touch with you?
Well, get in touch with me through the office. That's 541-474-5221. That's the county office.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a email that's longer than the arm, but anyway, it's a big thing.
Yeah.
I've got a personal email, and but I have a Facebook account. That,
I'll tell you what, I'll put that up on the website today. All right, Commissioner Heck?
That'd be great.
All right.
That'll work.
We'll have you back on. We appreciate your take on that. And I know it's a challenging time. Well, it's always been a challenging time to be a commissioner in Josephine County, and never more so than now. 6:57.
There you go. He had his say.
Yeah, he's a crusty, cantankerous one.
Yeah. So, really does come down to trust. I haven't met any of these people that they keep talking about that don't want any law enforcement. I've met plenty of people who don't trust them, and don't be telling me, well, this is part of the national mood. No, this is specific to these three individuals. And it doesn't mean that everybody in county government is corrupt. It's not true. So we really need to find out what the actual numbers are. Well, you won't understand it, says Simon Hare. Oh, we'll do the best that we can. And we'll try to explain it to everybody else like we always do for free. And we can certainly find out some of these things. I'm telling you, when we start uncovering things, well, one, it won't be on KJO. We know that. That's for sure.